Okay, so today we are going to discuss about very important concept. There are two very important concepts we are going to discuss about. One is the tags, which you had asked me about yesterday, and another one is this concept of table, like here, this one. So what is the use of this? Let's understand. Though we don't have the actual use case in this particular application, but I'll just create two files here. I'll say, for example, check login. Just a minute. Let me just admit Archana. Yes, so check login dot feature. Okay, just a moment. I'll just delete this because this got created with the .py extension. I'll just delete this. I'll say features, right click new, sorry, check login dot feature. Okay, and here I'll say check login functionality. Now, as I said, this is not related to our calculator application, but I want to explain you one important feature in this BDD, and for that we don't have any use case in this calculator. So I'm just creating one hypothetical example here so that I can explain you about this. So let's say you are testing one scenario. This is the scenario: successful login with multiple users. Okay, and this is the scenario, and this is the data actually which you want to use for your testing. So given following user exists, and then this is the username, password. So these are the different usernames and passwords you have provided. Or what we can also do is, let me just also open one more application. If we see that, so here if I, let's say, go to registration, okay, and member login, okay, so this is the member login, and I'll go to the sign up for a moment. So let's say you need to fill in the details of the user. Okay, so let me give you one more example, because if we use this login example now, that will create a confusion. So I would say orange HRM demo, for example, and I will go to this I'll just log into this admin 123, and I'll explain you what exactly this data table is for. I'll say okay, and now let's say if I'm going to say, for example, this leave page, and this, in these fields I need to enter the details. Okay, here, over here, or I'll just go to admin for a moment, and right, so here like my scenario is to add a new user, right? So while adding a new user, I need to fill in the details in these fields and then click on a save button. This is what I want to do, right? So there are different fields I need to put my data in, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 fields I need to enter some data in. So what I can do is I can, okay, so I would say I'll give some user role. So user role, then employee name, user role, employee name, status, then username, password, and confirm password. These are the details I need to enter, right? So these details I'll just use like enter here admin. Okay, then I would say employee name as the status as active, say enabled. Okay, okay, then the username is the D, password is PD at the rate 123, confirm password PD at the rate 123. So these are the details actually, okay, which I want to enter. So I'll say successful addition of users, user data. Okay, when user, given the following user exists, so I would say given uh, user is on, add user form. Okay, when user enters data below, right? So then user record should be created successfully. Now for entering the details of a user, I need to use this data. Okay, so instead of, like, imagine that you are writing a step which which tells you that when user enters something in the user role and user enters employee name in this and user selects enabled. So this is how you need to maybe write this particular when step. But instead of that, what you do is when user enters data below, and that data which you enter as a part of this particular step, you need to enter data in multiple fields. So instead of writing when for each of the steps, so I'll show you how otherwise you would have to write this particular step. So you would have to write it like, so I would say when user enters user enters uh, for example in admin in user role field, and user enters uh, you know the in employee name field. This is how you will have to write this for each and every field, and user enters this in this field and user enter this in this field, and you have to implement each of these steps in your step definitions. So instead of this, what we can do is we can implement a simple step like this. Okay, user enters data below, and the data we can represent in the form of this table. Okay, and how can we write the step definition for this? So let's write a step definition. So I'll go to the Python file and I would say user add user functionality. Okay, so I would just change the name of this file. Instead of login, I would say check add user functionality. Add user, right? So now how we will implement this? Now that I'll show you now. Okay, so we will first import our given when then. Okay, and then I'll say users db. We will have one dictionary. This is a dictionary creation or users data. Okay, and I'm just copying pasting because we just want to, you know, say on time. So here I would say given user is on add user form. Okay, and I would say def go to add user form, and in this there would be a code for going to that page. So code to navigate to the add user page, right? And then we will implement this part when user enters data below. So I would say at the rate when data below and def enter user details. And here now this is quite interesting. Just concentrate on this part now. This is a common thing which we have already seen. There is nothing special here. There is going to be a very important point now here. So when you have in your feature file, when you have some step and that step is associated with some data, so this particular data table gets sent. So this is interesting point. So where does it get sent? So we already are aware of context object, right? So what you will do is you will define a context object here. So in this context object, that table will be sent, context.table. So in this context, a data having which is there inside that table will be sent in context.table. So you can access that using context.table. So how I'll do it? So I would say for, we have already seen about this for loop. For row, this the name could be anything. For row in context.table. So what this context.table is? This table we are talking about. This one. This table we are talking about. So this will send a data, okay, from this table in context.table, and then you can access that. So I can say that row in context.table, and then I would say so how can I access it, the that particular data? So row, so what does this row is? Row is nothing but this row we are talking. So at a time So the entire table basically gets sent there in that context.table, and then you can iterate over each row. So if I have multiple rows, let's say if I create two more rows, okay, I would say Archana, then disabled, and I'll have some password here. Okay, and let's say third one is Suhas, enabled. I would say SU at the rate 123, SU at the rate 1. So this is the data. Now this entire table would be sent to this context.table, and each row we will iterate. So in this loop would be executed 3 times, as we have 3 rows there. So each row we would be iterating. And now what we will say do is, how can we access the data? So we can say print, or I'll just store it in some say variable. So I would say users TP. Okay, so I would say for example, I will save that data somewhere, or I can print also. That's absolutely fine. So I would say print. I'll just show you by printing it one. So row of and column name. So this is the column name which you will use. This column name, user role. Like this. Okay, so from this row, so this row is nothing but the row from the table. This row from the table, and you would be able to access the data using its column name. So row of user role will give you this. Row of employee name will give you this. Row of status will give you this, right? Then the second row would be iterated, as we have written the for loop here. Okay, so we have written a for loop here. So this code would be executed 3 times, as we have 3 rows. Each time a particular row would be iterated, and this row would be pointing to that row which is being iterated currently. So row of user role will give you the data from user role column from that row which is currently being iterated. Row then the second iteration. Now I am just having one, I am just accessing one here, right? So I would say I'll access another. I would say row of, and we'll try to access all the data. Okay, so this is the employee name. So I'll say employee name. Here I will put, right, then status, username, password, right? So when the first row would be iterated upon, this row, first iteration, this row will hold the data from the first row in the table. This data it will hold this row. So row of admin, row of user role will give us this data. Row of employee name will give us this data. Row of status will give us this data. row of username will give us this data, row of password and row of confirm password will give us this data. Then second iteration, the loop, once the first iteration would be completed now, the loop will start the second iteration. So in the second iteration, that row variable will hold this data. So I'm talking about this variable, this row will hold the data from the second row, and we can access the uh, data from each column from that row using this row of this, row of this, row of this, and like that, right? So this is how you can access the data from there, and then you will have the code to enter the data inside the table, some playwright code or something. But right now we have not integrated any playwright now, so I am just trying to explain you how can you send the data in your step definition and how you can access it. Now whether you print that data or you use that data to be entered inside the UI of your application, that's up to the implementation for your step definition, right? So that is how you can manage to access this data. Now I'll execute this and I'll show you how can this be executed. So I'll say behave, and I can also specify the feature file path. If I want to execute a particular feature file, I would say features slash check and enter. Okay, so let's execute. Now there is an error here. That's absolutely fine. The error says that we have not implemented this part. This then is not implemented is what it says, but we don't need this. That's fine. Okay, let's see the error now. On add user form. Okay. Go to add user form. Okay, just let me go to this. And given, but one was given. Okay, which argument I have given here? Just give me a moment. When user enters data below, there is a error here. Just give me a moment. You go to add user form, take 0 positional arguments, but one was given. Go to add user form. User is on add user form. Okay, let me check this. User is on add user form. This is correct. Sorry. Just a minute. What I'll do is I'll just comment this also, because we are not interested in this part. We are interested in the table part actually. So the steps are passed. So yeah, so the steps are passed. Now let's see those print outputs. So I would say -s. Okay. Okay, so the steps are passed, and let me see So the table is sent without any issues, absolutely fine. And I'll just check how can we see the print in the behave. So I'll say how to get print on console while executing behave. So like we have in PyTest, we have -s, right, to see the output of print statement. So in behave, I'm just checking what we have in behave because we are not able to see these print statements here on this console. So I'm just trying to just see that. Ah, okay. STD error capture. Okay. So this one actually. See, the data is being printed. So this is the data. Admin, Pranoday, this data is being printed properly without any issues. You can see this admin. So this one, admin Pranoday enabled Pranoday D PD123 PD @123. So this data is for the first row. This data, first row data has been printed. Now let's see the second row data. So this is the second row data, admin Archana, this one. This is the second row data which is being printed. Okay, and then we have third row data also. Right, so this is how you can manage to send the data in this in this particular step, right? So entire data is being captured and we are able to access it. So this is what this helps you in. If your step needs uh, a huge amount of data, okay, so instead of sending that data as a part of a individual steps, so you can write a single step and you can send the required data in the form of table, and in the step definition you can access that using context.table. So context.table, and then you can iterate over the table row by row using the loop like this, and you can access the data from each column from a specific row using row of column name, right? So this is how you can uh, now there is a difference. Now you might ask, okay, what is the difference between this and what is the difference between scenario outline which we had seen yesterday? So this is for different purpose actually. This is for different purpose where you are doing a data driven, actually a single scenario you are iterating over each data. So the use case of this is different than use case of this. So here the scenario is not getting iterated over. Kindly understand this. Here scenario is not getting iterated. So this scenario that is given when then, this is not getting iterated. What is getting iterated is basically this runs once, this when you run this, so this particular step, the step definition of this particular step will have a loop to iterate over the data here, right? So here scenario would be executed only once, okay, and the step to which the data is being sent, that step definition will have a code to iterate over a table and access the data and perform the uh, stuff whatever that step needs to perform. Whereas here in scenario outline, given when then this entire scenario gets executed repeatedly, and each row being sent as an data to it like this, right here. So scenario is getting executed 4 times, all steps given when then 4 times they will be executed. But here scenario would be executed only once, just that when this step would be executed in the step definition, okay, its step definition, if it has a loop to iterate over each row from the table you are sending, so that step definition code would be iterated for number of times, right? So this is a huge difference between the two. The use case of this is different than the use case of this data driven. So this is a data driven part actually. Same test case you are executing on multiple set of data. So in short, you have created 4 test cases here. 4 test cases, 4 rows. Okay, just that you are not writing each scenario individually. You have written the scenario once and you are parameterizing the data and managing to iterate over the data and getting 4 scenarios actually executed. Whereas here your scenario is only one, just that one of the step requires you to requires a multiple set of data. Okay, so this is the requirement of this single step, that this needs a multiple set of data, so you send a table to that particular step. Okay, so this is the difference actually between the two. And Suhas, as you had asked me yesterday, that if you want to execute a particular feature file, so you can execute it in this way. You can say behave and then you can specify the path of the feature file. And if you want to execute a particular scenario from the particular feature file, let's say that is the that is what you want to do. So what you can do is you can here tag the scenarios. So I would say smoke. Okay, smoke. Then for example, regression. Sanity. Okay, sanity. Then let's say here also I have a sanity. Now if I want to execute all the sanity scenarios, I will do something like this. Dash dash tags equal to sanity. So you can see 3 scenarios got executed from this file. So I mentioned the file also, which feature file I want to execute, and I mentioned which scenario from that feature file I want to execute by specifying the tag. So you can see here in this particular feature file, addition functionality feature, there are total 5 scenarios, out of which 3 scenarios got executed, 2 are skipped. Why these 2 are skipped? Because they have some different tag than sanity, and I just asked it to execute only those scenarios from a feature file having sanity as its tag. So this is how you can execute specific scenarios, specific feature file, right? Suhas, this is what you were looking out for.
Yes.
Clear so far?
Yes.
So we have seen 2 things: how to execute a particular feature file and particular scenarios from that feature file. Now if you don't specify the feature file name and you specify only tags, let's say only tags, this is what you just mentioned, then what it will do, it will execute all the scenarios having tag sanity from all the feature files. Okay, so it depends upon what you want to execute. So if you want to execute a particular feature file, all scenarios, then say behave and specify the path of that feature file. If you want to execute particular scenarios from particular feature file, then give path of feature file, also the tag. And if you want to execute all the feature files, all the scenarios, then just give behave as a command. So it will execute all the feature files and all the scenarios from each of them one by one, right? And if you want to execute a particular scenario from particular feature file, then behave space path of the feature file space dash dash tags equal to the tag you want to execute your scenarios. I mean the name of a tag for the scenarios which you want to execute, that way, right? And we also discussed about this part, this table, how to send multiple set of data to a single step. Okay, so to this step we are sending multiple set of data. So this will not iterate the entire scenario the way it does is in case of scenario outline. Okay, this is a different use case and scenario outline is a different use case. Yes, clear guys, any questions?
No, for now.